Okay, Spence, you got the first three at left guard. Nerta, you got everyone at left tackle.
While the game of football is measured in yards, the game of life is simply measured in time. The time shared by Scott and Sarah Coy is a living testimony to make every second count.
I worked with his stepsister, and he was home from Northern Illinois.
I said, hey, you know, we're going to get some drinks if you and your friends want to come on out. And she brought Sarah, started to talk to Sarah, got to know her.
I sat down beside him, and he was just a jerk. He was very brash, and he made just mean jokes. And I just kept giving back to him, and his friend's girlfriend was like, oh, I'm so glad somebody else is going to give you crap like you give everybody else. And I just wouldn't let up.
Kind of used an in that she worked at Kohl's at the time, and I needed to buy some new polos, so that was my pickup line, was to have her. I got her number so I could call her so she could buy me some polos.
When I was on my way home and he called me, he's like, I just wanted to make sure that you were going to get home all right. And I was like, huh. And I don't know if it was just his sarcastic side, but I think I knew that night that I was going to marry him.
We hung out that summer. I went back to Illinois for the fall, and then we stayed in touch. She did come out one time over the winter, and then I got the job here in Westminster that next spring, so we started seeing each other a lot more.
I went in and I'm sitting on the couch, and Scott's sitting in I think he was in the easy chair, and Sarah was on the love seat, and I said, so what's your intentions with my daughter? And he goes, well, you know, I just want to date her and maybe get married. It's all right. I got up and left the room and went and got my .44, and I came out and said, here, let me show you my gun. And Sarah said, Mom, for crying out loud, make Dad quit. And I said, no, I can't quit. You know I have to do this to all these guys. So Scott takes it, looks at it, says, wow, that's really nice. And he's looking it all over, and I thought, well, he's a keeper, I guess.
The bond between Scott and Sarah continued to grow closer, and on March 18, 2008, Scott asked Sarah to be his wife. Little did they know, less than 4 months before their wedding, an accident threatened to separate them forever. In January of 2009, Scott attended a coaches conference at the Gaylord Opryland Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee. Accompanied with other colleagues, a night of horseplay would lead to a near-fatal fall.
Got a cab back home like we've been doing every night, came back to the room. We were just messing around, got a little testosterone flowing, started wrestling around. There was myself, and there was Tom Watts, and there was Darren DeMeo, who all were coaches for Westminster at the time. I think Tom and Darren started. They were just messing around and just a little bit of horseplay. And then I kind of got involved, and then it kind of escalated where Darren and I were going a little bit rough. And I remember pushing him towards the window, and I can remember the window crashing. And I distinctly remember I had two different, I thought, I can't believe the window broke. I can't believe the window broke on the way down. That's about how long it took. And then I hit, and it was a big thud, and then I rolled to my right. I came to a stop. I was laying on my back, and I could feel that my whole hips and my legs were numb. I couldn't move them, couldn't do anything. But I heard Darren wheezing really bad, and he was making a noise that I had never heard before, and I thought I killed him. So I kept trying to look over my shoulder, look back up over my shoulder, turn over to see what he was doing. And I kept turning and kept trying to turn, but I couldn't move. Obviously, my legs were shot. So after a couple seconds of me trying to turn over, I can remember looking up and seeing the third person that was in the room look out of the window, the broken window. I can remember seeing his little silhouette of his shoulders and his head. And I remember him yelling down for me to lay still. And then as soon as I laid still, I passed out. The only thing I remember after that, I woke up sometime later. I don't know if it was an hour, I don't know if it was 3 hours, but woke up sometime later with a paramedic over top of me, pinning me down, and he kept saying, "Sir, you fell out of the window, please stay still." And I must have been fighting it, and I was not aware.
His mother called me, it was probably 8:30 or so in the morning, and said that Scott had had an accident and he fell, and he was in a hospital. And she gave me a number, and I called down there, and basically, not a lot of info, so I didn't realize the severity at that time.
They just said that he was in bad shape, he was in the trauma unit, And I immediately want to hear trauma unit. I'm like, oh my God, is he going to die? And they're like, we don't have any details. We got to get off the phone. We got to go work on him. And then they hung up on me. And I kept calling back, and they're like, the more you call us, the less we can work on him. Stop calling us. And they're like yelling at us in the phone. So it was nerve-wracking not knowing exactly what had happened and just getting a random phone call.
We went in to see him, and he said, I had a real bad accident. I'm sorry, I had a real bad accident. Felt really bad about it. And then and the guy said he's in real bad shape. Real, you know, his pelvis is hurt and his leg is hurt real bad. He's real bad. But then after that, he got worse. They had to put him under or whatever, and then he really got bad after that.
Scott had suffered a broken pelvis and femur from the fall. He would have to undergo 3 surgeries within 6 days to repair the damage.
They told us that he may not make it because at that point he had had so many surgeries, and then his kidneys had completely shut down. And since we weren't married, I didn't have the authority to give doctors okay. And his mom said to the doctor said, you know, if you don't agree to hook him up to dialysis, he won't live for the next 8 hours. He'll die. And his mom's like, well, of course, you know, hook him up. Why wouldn't you hook him up? And they said that sometimes they just have people that don't want medical help, and they would just choose to let him go. But she was like, anything you can do to save him.
You're in the waiting room. You have the family was very important down there at that point. You know, kind of leaning. I tried to be the rock because I'm the tough dad. I'm supposed to be the rock, but the rock cracked a couple, 3 times, and it's just a helpless feeling to see him laying there, and you want to do something, but you can't.
We would move from bed to bed, and we would all pray together, and then we'd go to the chapel, and we would just kind of comfort each other in the waiting rooms, because you couldn't sit by, there were no chairs allowed in the trauma unit because everything happened so fast. So literally from the time the doors opened for visiting hours, you walked in and you stood by his bed just talking to him, telling him, you know, like, we've got a future ahead of us, you got to pull through. And then the people we met would come over and they would pray over top of him, and then we'd move to like the one girl's dad, and then we'd move to the other people's sister, and it was nice to meet people who were in a situation very similar.
The fatality rate for a 40-foot fall is 85%. Although the odds were stacked against him, Scott wasn't ready to go.
In my opinion, I think there was somebody looking out for Scott. I believe that there was a higher power involved. That's my opinion. I'm not a regular churchgoer, but I just can't help but feel that there was something there that helped along the way.
When they say that bad things happen and you take 2 steps forward and you take 1 back, I felt like we would take 3 steps forward and then we would take like 10 steps back. So he would be going in the right direction, and then he got the blood clot, so then they had to do another surgery, and then he had these infections in his back that they cleared up when he was in Nashville. They came up and the hospital didn't know about him and didn't take care of him properly, so they got reinfected, and it was just, we would go forward a little bit and then things would happen and we'd go back, but just the little things that did happen good was enough to just kind of keep us going. When we were in Nashville, he finally woke up, and the whole time I kept thinking, oh my God, what if he wakes up and he's a changed person? Because I'd heard, oh, people go into these like induced comas and they wake up and everything in their life has changed. And my worst fear was, I said to my mom, he's like, what if he doesn't love me when he wakes up? That was my fear, so I kept asking him. Every time I'd go in his room, I'm like, do you still want to marry me? Do you still want to marry me? And it got to the point where he would just roll his eyes at me like, stop asking me this. And you could just tell that he was trying to say to me, nothing has changed.
As Sarah and the rest of the family tended to Scott, the question at Westminster College remained: would he be brought back to coach the Titans?
Well, this had become a fairly widespread news item nationally. It was on ESPN, it was on a number of other media venues. Obviously it was a great concern to me because it did not reflect very well upon the institution. From a public relations standpoint, the first thing that I want to do is make sure that I get all the facts, because there was a lot of immediate pressure, if I may, to summarily fire the 2 individuals involved because of the negative press that it was giving to the institution.
It was nerve-wracking because all I could think of was like, if he loses his job, I work part-time, I can't, like, how are we going to pay for life? Because Off my measly paycheck, we're going to not be able to afford our house. So I was more worried about him losing his job, but all the repercussions of him possibly losing his job, because finding a job as a handicapped person would have been even harder at that time.
Our approach is that we want to do what we think is best for these individuals, and then also, obviously, we want to do what's best, what we think for the program, for the college, and for the program involved. So we certainly did talk about, those options. Coach Coy was very remorseful, I can tell you that, about the situation. He was probably more concerned at one point when I talked to him early in his rehab and recovery about his situation, about what he had caused to Westminster, as more concerned about that than his own health. And I said, that's not the focus here. You need to get well. You've got a family. You need to get well. We're going to work this out to get, to have you come back, and then we'll go from there.
The way I handled this was simply to look at the facts of the case, and even in the face of much pressure and much criticism to fire the coaches, recognize that this was purely an accident on their part. Yes, they shouldn't have been doing what they did, but these are two individuals who, under normal circumstances, would have lost their lives.
I couldn't have blamed the college because of the negative PR that surrounded this accident, and there were people making fun of it online, and it was, I could understand their position. I'm glad they didn't. They have been great, and I've told different people, the college president included, that I was happy with the way they handled the whole thing. I thanked them for treating my son the way they did, is how I put it.
Coach Coy sustained significant fractures, fracture to the femur, right? And then he also had multiple fractures of the pelvis, right? So on both sides here, and that also involved then nerve damage down into the legs as well.
Well, he had therapy 3 days a week, so I would get off work, and then I would load him in the car, and we would drive up to Edwin Shaw, and he would have physical therapy, and then he'd have occupational therapy, and we'd come home, and then it was basically just my mom, dad, sister, and I, and he would need to get out of bed, so we would do exactly what the staff did at Edwin Shaw to help him get out of bed, and we were basically his staff from Edwin Shaw, just in family. To everything he learned to do there, we had to help him at my parents' house.
There's organizations come in and build ramps and stuff. I said, no, nobody's building anything on my house. I will accommodate this man as any way I can. So what I did is I got a hold of a pallet lift that was electric. And I sat that beside my porch and made a platform on it that we could roll his wheelchair onto and raise it up to the level of the porch, roll him on the porch, and he could go in, and when he come back out, roll it out and lower him down. We pretty much gave up our living room to him to put a bed in it and things like that, but it didn't bother me a bit. Just like we went on like normal, just like nothing ever happened. It really didn't disrupt our lives much at all.
Despite all they had been through, Scott and Sarah were still married on the special day they had chosen over a year ago.
We wanted to stay with it. We felt like it didn't really matter what I could do or what I couldn't do. We wanted to get married on that day, and all that was mattered was I was alive, I was there, and we were getting married.
His family kept saying, you're not going to be able to dance together. You should postpone your wedding. And we were like, this is the date we picked. It's going to happen, and it's going to be what it is. Like, if he can't dance, he can't dance. We'll have a party later. We're just going to celebrate the fact that he's here, and we were able to get married.
Well, I expressed my stance to them. I had said my piece to them and basically told them I'd support whatever the decision they had. Because ultimately, as I discussed with my wife and as we discussed with Scott and Sarah, ultimately it's their decision. If they decide to go through with it, we'll do whatever we can to help them out. Whether or not we think they should or shouldn't, it was kind of irrelevant at that point.
They wanted to know, well, what do you think? Because I'll be in a wheelchair. I'll get my tractor with a trailer and I'll pull you up to the altar. Whatever it takes, I'll get you there. Don't worry about it.
When our wedding day finally came, it was neat because we got married in a park, and I was standing behind this building, so I got to see him and the groomsmen walk out, and to see his brother push him down the aisle in his wheelchair, it was just amazing to know that despite everything, it was still going to happen.
I really wish I could have been standing up for it, but I mean, it was sentimental nonetheless. It's really an event like that where you're in a room and there's 100 people in the room together and they're all there for you, it's just really special.
His parents and his brother and sister-in-law and I had met with one of the surgeons after his final surgery in Nashville, and his stepmom said, you know, we're worried, is he going to be able to have kids? And the doctor said there's a good possibility he won't because of all the trauma. And we had tried basically from the day we got married, and nothing happened and nothing happened. And last summer, it was in June, and we were sitting in the kitchen, and I looked at him and I was like, we need to talk. And he goes, what's wrong? And I started crying, and I was like, I'm really worried that your accident's made it so we're never going to be able to have kids. And he kind of teared up, and he's like, can I tell you something? I said, yeah. And he goes, I'm worried too. And literally the next month, we found out I was pregnant. And I had known something was going on the whole month. I'm like, something's just, it's not right, something's off. And he's like, you're fine, don't worry about it. And I had told myself, I forget what day it was, I was like, okay, if nothing happens in two days, I'm going to take a test. So he had left for work. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take one. And I took one, and I remember looking at it, and I was like shaking, and then I looked at it and it said it was positive, and I thought, okay, well, I got to go to the grocery store. One test, maybe it's a false positive. I'll go to the store, I'll buy more. I'll go get groceries. I literally made it 2 blocks away from the house, stopped at Walgreens, got one, came home, took another test, and I was like, oh my God, I think this is real. So I called him and I go, are you sitting down? He said, yeah. Is anybody with you? And he goes, no. Why? And I go, well, can you keep a secret? And he said, yeah. And I said, I'm pregnant. And he squealed in the phone. I was like, oh my God, what do we do now? And he goes, I don't know. You got to call a doctor.
On March 15, 2012, a new miracle would make the Coy family grow by one. A miracle named Preston.
He's unbelievable. It's just the fact that we're still amazed every day that we see him and that he's ours. It's almost surreal, but just being able to do that is just an amazing thing for anybody, let alone me, what I've been through. He's been a blessing, and it's just awesome to be around it.
He's fascinating. Like, I'm home with him all day because I quit my job, and I find myself, I'll lay him on a blanket, and I will literally spend like 4 hours just staring at him, and I look at the clock, and I'm like, shoot, all this time's gone by and I haven't done anything. And now that I don't work, I'm able to take him up to the office, so Scott gets to see him a lot more than he would if I was working.
Having a grandson, if you tell someone that doesn't have a grandson, try to explain to them what a good feeling that is. It's like trying to explain to somebody how to swim if you're standing on the beach. They just don't get it. They don't understand. There's not words that can describe that to someone that doesn't have those. Yeah, it's a great feeling.
Come here, Damon. You know what 135 is? Yeah. What is 135?
Flat.
Okay, who are we optioning?
You got blocked.
Correct. So I don't want you to block him anymore.
Take a deep breath.
The good thing about the college is that so many people on here are just great people, and that's really exciting when you come to work. And any of those avenues that I'm working at with the football team, with Coach Hand and all the other coaches that I work with, or the track team with Coach McNeil, or doing anything in the weight room, or doing anything with classes and anything like that, is the people that I'm involved with and the people that I'm working with are all great people. But it really makes it exciting to come to work. I really love to come to work. I really love to see the people and really love to do what I do. And the old adage that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life is kind of what I'm going by. I just love being here and being around the people and helping out and doing what I can.
Personally, I think he's become a better coach in the long run because of it, as far as what he is able to bring to the table. I do believe that he's going to continue to progress as far as his health, but I do believe that he's continuing to get better as a coach.
I think when people see him and see that he still has some mobility issues and so forth, that's going to be a constant reminder. But I think for the most part, he's tried to rise above that. He's trying to do his job here for us. He's always been a good department member that we've valued and so forth, and we continue to see that in him.
The way that he persevered through everything, because I mean, the accident itself was tremendous, and for him to bounce back, start his life pretty much over again, still rehab to this day, he's still rehabbing and trying to get better. And for him to have a kid, I mean, like, I look up to the guy just because he was my football coach for 4 years. He is a friend of mine, and it's just to see him come back from where he was is it's an awesome thing, and I really do think that he is a mentor to me.
In football, teams celebrate converting a fourth down as a new opportunity. Just like in life, it takes determination, teamwork, and sometimes a miracle.
I've been thankful different times that type of a woman was the one that he chose, fate chose him, whatever it was that brought them together.
Just amazing from her, really, for her to stick with it through everything, and to be so supportive of him during that time. To have that kind of support for him and stick with him through all that, it's just been absolutely amazing.
Everybody says, Ben, if they can make it through this, they are going to be, you know, great together. Because you're right, she was great. I mean, she did everything for him. You know, she pushed. I might have not pushed as bad as she did, but she really pushed him.
She's been an angel through the whole thing, and it really, truly, we talk about it sometimes too. Is we've probably been through more before we were married than many married couples go through their whole lives.
Well, I told him that even if down the road that he gets tired of me, that we've been through too much stuff, and I don't care what he says. He's stuck with me forever.
It's a testament to our love for each other, and you know, how our feelings and how we feel about one another. To be able to go through what we've went through and see the things that we've seen.
I don't think anything will ever break us down, because if it was going to break us down, it would have broke us down 3 years ago.
I want to know what I've been missing. I want to see it with my eyes. I want to breathe deeply and come back to life. It'll be about time, 'cause I can't say how we ended up this way, but I don't need a friend, I need you again. 'Cause things don't change, they just rearrange, and we can carry on, and that's the beauty of it all. I can't say how we ended up this way, but I don't need a friend, I need you again. No, I can't say how we ended up this way, but I don't need a friend, I need you again. Oh, and things don't change, they just rearrange, and we can carry on, and that's the beauty of it all. I can't say how we ended up this way, but I don't need a friend, I need you again. Love is gonna find you, love is gonna find you running. Love is gonna find you, love is gonna find you there. Love is gonna find you, love is gonna find you running. It'll hit you when it's what you least expect.